Hey, it's Steve here, and in this video I want to talk to you about the relationship between cortisol and fat gain and potentially fat loss as well. So it's not uncommon for people to come in and see me in clinic and they'll be talking about how they feel like the elevation in sort of stress has caused them to gain body fat, oftentimes grabbing around their belly and talking about how cortisol is associated to an increase in belly fat. And whilst there's an element of truth in that, which I'll talk about shortly, what I want to kind of clear up is that cortisol has a complex relationship, shall we say, towards fat gain and fat loss. And interestingly, you can utilize cortisol in your favor to support fat loss as well. Now, in terms of promoting fat gain, one of the things that cortisol will do is it will increase an enzyme called LPL, or lipoprotein lipase. And this is particularly apparent around the abdominal region, which tends to lead to more increased fat accumulation. Another factor is that there's another enzyme called 11-beta-HSD1, which basically converts inactive cortisone into cortisol within the fat cell itself. So it amplifies the amount of cortisol within the fat cell, again, further promoting that LPL activity. And as a result of that, what we tend to do is we tend to then draw fat from the bloodstream into these cells and store it in there. And this is particularly true with the visceral fat that kind of sits around the abdominal region. So there's definitely a factor that higher stress levels could potentially promote fat storage. But the caveat with this is that you have to be in a caloric surplus for that to happen. So if you've got this high level of stress and one of your coping mechanisms for high stress is you're going to be eating a lot more food, and then you're pushing yourself into a calorie surplus, then yes, what you could potentially be doing is promoting the fat storage, promoting visceral fat storage particularly, which is obviously the type of fat that's a bit more associated to inflammation, cardiovascular risk, metabolic diseases. So that's obviously something we need to be mindful of, and it's looking at other kind of coping strategies that you can utilize to help you manage your stress that maybe go beyond food, to help you manage your caloric levels and try and keep you in kind of a caloric balance, or even if you're trying to lose body fat, continue to keep you in a subtle deficit that helps you to be able to do that. The other side that's probably worth mentioning is that cortisol can impact on things like sleep. It can impact on hormones that do play a role in our metabolism that might actually impact how many calories you are able to utilize. And this can sometimes skew what we think is a sort of caloric balance for us and ultimately lead to a surplus when we didn't really think we would be in a surplus as well. So that's something to be mindful of. Now, cortisol isn't inherently bad, and it does promote fat loss as well, because at the same time as promoting or stimulating these other enzymes, it also stimulates hormone sensitive lipase, or HSL. And hormone sensitive lipase is a fat breaking down enzyme. Now what it will do, it will actually help to break down stored fat or the triglycerides and turn them into forms of fat that we can basically use for energy. And this is why short-term kind of spikes in cortisol from exercise and that sort of thing can be really beneficial, because we can actually start to utilize up these fats. We can turn that into energy as well. So the key thing here is that actually if we incorporate exercise as a way of increasing cortisol, we're able to manage our caloric intake well, then actually we can utilize cortisol as a way to help us burn fat. Equally, if we're incorporating exercise and the right forms of exercise and we're recovering well, we also stimulate other hormones and enzymes that are involved in our ability to break down fat. So exercise, particularly more higher intensity exercise, is going to stimulate adrenaline and noradrenaline, which further enhances that HSL enzyme activity as well. Cortisol also increases AMPK and PGC1A, and these both improve fat oxidation and support energy production within our cells as well. So ultimately, if you're looking to gain or lose body fat, you can still lose body fat when you're getting these kind of acute increases in cortisol, and then you're recovering well in between, you're managing your diet well. And this is the kind of Goldilocks zone that we're looking for with people, is that ability to have acute periods of stress and we come back into good periods of recovery, and then we've got the sort of headspace to be able to manage our diet well, create the subtle deficit that we need to then be able to reduce body fat. But I guess my point is that we don't want to be scared of cortisol. We just got to learn how to manage our overall lifestyle, how we're going to manage the chronic stress probably more than anything, and then utilize these stress hormones in acute bursts to be able to support our ability to optimize body composition as well. So overall, the main thing is just to basically manage stress, train smart, recover well, eat appropriate to your goal, and ultimately use cortisol to your advantage. I hope you found this video really informative. If you did, feel free to leave a comment, follow me, and go from there. Thanks very much. Cheers.